It's hello?
Hello.
I feel like finger pistols are a good way to go. Like that never gets old. It's that and the dice. Hey, the dice.
Oh, the dice.
That's so wicked.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Is that better? There we go. That's plus.
You don't have to turn your body. Like you can turn the mic itself. Like it does. It's you know what I mean? I get like you're like, oh no, it's over here. Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hello? And we're back. It's been a minute, man, since we've done one of these things, hey?
Yes, it has.
I feel like it's good time to jump back on the train here and get back into these things a little bit. How are you?
I'm doing really good. I've actually really missed this.
Yeah?
Yeah. Mostly because we just laugh so much.
Because of the shenanigans?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We try to look like we know what we're doing, but
yeah, we really don't, though.
do not.
No. So if you watched any of the outtakes or bloopers from us just trying to set this up, it was a complete disaster. So didn't remember what the buttons are, but away we go.
Do you remember what to say, though?
No, I don't. I have actually legitimately do not remember any of it. So
I think it was like, welcome to the FIT4MOTO podcast episode.
Who knows? I think I've given up on trying to keep count of which podcast it is.
But remember we leave it blank and then you just fit it in?
Oh, right. But I should do it with like a bot voice so it's like number 9. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's super AI body.
Yeah.
That would be good.
It would be.
Yeah. Okay. So, big episode though, because we're launching into pretty quick here, a whole new season.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. And the 2024 Supercross season. And this is really why we wanted to kind of kick off the whole podcast train again. And we thought that it was, a good starting point was the Supercross preview. Because, I mean, we can bench race all day about that kind of stuff. Who's coming in, who looks good, who doesn't, We may not have the insider information, in the industry, as some of the people would call it. But I think it's cool because we can still sit here and bench race and chat about who we think might be good, who we think is probably blowing a whole lot of hot steam, and
absolutely
how that looks.
I think like this year, I'm more of an off-road guy, right, than Supercross and everything. But like even for me to watch it, like this year, I think it's gonna be very interesting because there's so many things that have changed. Whether it's like riders on bikes, riders coming back from injuries and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I think it's gonna be very interesting. It's not stacked where it's like, someone's gonna show up and you're like, yeah, that guy's just gonna win again.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the really cool things about this year is that it's really going to be interesting to see. I mean, right off the top, you got to talk about Tomac, right? So Tomac went out last year, as everyone knows, with the Achilles injury, and I really thought he was going to retire. I really did. I did not think he was going to come back for another season after that injury. So pleasantly surprised to see he's come back. What do you think about where he's at? Like, yeah, Tomac is always, he's a beast. He's got the speed. He's all, got all that kind of stuff. And I think, relative to, Barsha or something like that, I still think he's going to have him covered. But what are your thoughts on where Jet's at? I mean, Jet has been dominating, right? Do you think Tomac's going to have what it takes to get him?
I think so. I think it's just going to take like a little bit to kind of get in there. Like, I feel like Tomac has the mindset where he'd be like, okay, like I've been around long enough and know what to do. But I think the first like kind of race is going to get him a little bit to like get situated on the bike, because it's also a new bike this year for him too, right? Like it's still Yamaha, but it's like a whole new frame, I believe.
Yeah.
So I think that's just going to play a little bit of effect. So I think like coming out, I think he's just going to kind of pace himself a little bit better because again, he has that experience. Whereas Jet, like, I think Jet's going to do really good. The only downfall I kind of see is like he's had half a year on a 450. So I think like having that knowledge of being like, hey, like this is how the 450 will react halfway through the moto, or like when I show up to this type of race and all of a sudden it rains, it's like, how do I set my 450? I feel like that's going to be a big thing for him. Yeah, totally.
I think Jet's going to be tough to beat. I do think you're right though. I think Tomac is going to pace himself out of the gate. Like he may take a 5th or a 6th or something like that for the first round or two, But then I think once he kind of gets going again, he's going to come out and, he'll kind of build steam as he goes. Like he usually does, actually. He doesn't usually do that good in the first round.
No.
So I do think you're right. I think he's going to come out and kind of, try and get the ball rolling sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And, I think a lot of riders like that, but I think Jet's different where he's going to come out of the gate swinging immediately. Mm-hmm. I'm willing to bet that Jet wins A1. I think Jet's going to win it, and I think not just by a little bit. I think he's going to completely devastate everybody. I don't know why or what makes me think that. Maybe it's just the way he's been performing, but I think he's going to come out and have a huge lead over the rest of the field. I think. I hope not, because that's not as exciting to watch, right? Like I want to see, him and Roxon or whoever be going at it. That to me is more exciting to watch. But I do think that Jet's going to come out, and I think he's going to lay a beating on them, at least for the first couple of rounds until some of the guys go, okay, we need to step it up a little bit.
Yeah. And it's interesting to watch some riders how they like come out right away, hot out of the gates for the first part of the season. And then they kind of they almost plateau. And then everyone else is like, now we're getting the rhythm of things, right? They're not whether burnt out or they're just kind of keep building that snowball effect, right? Yeah.
And Barsh is really, really big for that, right? He'll come out he won what, 4 A1s in a row or something like that. Yeah. And everyone's like, oh, okay, he's the A1 guy, And then as the season goes on, he kind of peters out a little bit. I don't know if that's because he's peaking super early, or maybe it's just because, the more experienced guys that he rides with, not to say he isn't experienced, but the other experienced guys, maybe is a better way to say it, they understand what's going to happen. So like we talked about, they come in and then they start building steam as that series goes on, because there's a lot of races, right? It's like the old saying, you can't win the championship at A1, but you can lose it.
Yep.
Right. So, whereas, Barsha, I think he's just super entertaining to watch. Like his riding style is amazing, right? Revs the shit out of the bike. Mm-hmm. Just throws fat scrubs and stuff. Like he's super entertaining to watch. And when he's coming around other riders, it's just entertaining because you're like, okay, he's going to take someone out, that makes racing exciting, I think, anyway. Do I think that he's going to have what it takes to beat Jet and Tomac and those guys? No, I don't. No, I think he's probably going to be a little bit off the pace. Mm-hmm. I would say maybe a 5th place-ish type guy. Thoughts?
Mm-hmm. I would have to agree with that.
Yeah.
What about Chase? What do you think about?
That's a huge topic, right? So Chase. So we've got, obviously the defending champion. Granted, Tomac handed it to him with a tear in the Achilles. That being said, he's changed brands too. Now, depending on what kind of content you consume, there's talk of he was never that comfortable on the Honda. He continually washed the front end out on it. So, that was obviously an issue for him because nearly every race he crashed at some point, right? And he says, the KTM, he has way more front end feel. So whether that's true or not, we're not going to know until we start putting laps out there, right? And see if he starts losing the front end again and it's over the little things too. Like it's usually not a huge mistake. It's just over a little single or something. He'll try and tuck the front tire a little bit and then he just loses it, but it's going to be really interesting to see how he comes back. If my gut's telling me anything, I think he's going to come back off the pace. I think, I hope that's not true because I want him to be competitive. Right. But if you look at the kind of the dominating fashion that Jet had hit on him in there's the Paris or not the Paris Supercross, the World Supercross Series, whatever it's called.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Where they raced in the state or the stadium there, the
I know
Anaheim Stadium or whatever it is. What's it called again? Anyway, so they raced in that stadium, and that's where Chase crashed again, but. Jet it seems like Jet has the ability to go that pace. And then when he needs to, he steps it up a whole nother level and can drop his lap times even more and then go back down to what the other guys are riding at. Like, I feel like, Chase is riding at his maximum and maybe that's why he's losing the front end. And Jet is he's only riding at 95% at any one time, right? And he can dial it up another 5% if he has to, reel in everybody and pass them, and then just dials it back down again to the point where he's not crashing, And, typically we'd like to say, well, what if, he's inexperienced, so he's, a quote unquote rookie to the class. And I hate that. Like, I get it. You may be new to racing against some of those really experienced guys. But come on, you've been racing your entire life. You're not a rookie in anything, right? Like he's not lining up to the gate being like, oh boy, it's the big leagues, right? Like he's going to line up and go, I'm going to destroy everybody, you know? So call him what you want, maybe because it's his first year. But so I think if we lean on that, well, he's a rookie, you know, he might come out too hot out of the gate. He might make a bunch of mistakes. I mean, he just hasn't shown us that. He went, 24-0 in the motocross, unbeaten, right? So I think if that rookie thing was going to get him, we would have seen it. And so I don't think that we're going to see it in the 2024 Supercross season. He may make mistakes the same way as Sexton, you know, or Tomac does in a corner or something like that. But I don't think we're going to see these big mistakes from a quote unquote rookie.
No. And I think like I said, it's going to come back to like just not having the knowledge of setting up the 450 quite for like certain situations. But I don't think it's going to take him very long to figure that stuff out. Like he pretty much just dances on the bike. Like watching him, like, yeah, you're saving energy off that and that. It's just like ties everything together. It's actually really cool to watch. It is like, and he rides effortlessly, right? And if you watch, you know, I mean, Tomac is super smooth too, obviously, but you know, if you just like a really good comparison is Barsha, right? Barsha like hammers everything, and it looks like he's blowing so much energy going around the track. And I'm not saying that he doesn't have the energy to do it. Clearly he does. He can go a whole race fine, right? Without petering out at the end. But I just feel like watching him ride, he's working 30 to 40% harder, it looks like, on the bike than someone like Jet or Tomac is, you know? Which is one of the reasons why it's so entertaining to watch him, right? Because you're like, damn, man, like he's just all over that bike. Like the way he hammers corners, like it looks like he's barely hanging on to it at points. Super entertaining. But he's just, again, to, you know, go back to your comparison with Jet, it's like he's just effortless, you know, like it doesn't even look like he's trying, right? And I think that's where you start to see that other 5% or whatever people want to call it, 2%. I think that's where you start to see that come into play. Is just he's not riding at his 100%, whereas a guy like Barsha is literally hanging off the bike on every angle he possibly can just to try and keep up a little bit. You know what I mean? See how hit the spring? I see you smiling at me. I was like, I can definitely hear that. They can definitely hear that. All right. Look, this isn't the Joe Rogan podcast. People are fully aware that this is ghetto, and I'm fine with it. Okay. But yeah, so I think it's going to be really interesting to see. I think I really hope that Jet, I mean, it sounds bad, but just hear me out. I hope he makes mistakes. And I only hope that because I don't want him to walk away with it and me spend $200 to watch Supercross races that are like, okay, well, once the start's done and he's got the whole shot, okay, well, I might as well turn it off because I know who's going to win. Exactly. That's boring, right? I want to see takeouts, dude. I want to see people get aggressive. I want to see Jason Anderson knock someone off into the hay bales. You know what I mean? Like, that's what's super entertaining. Nothing is better to me when I'm sitting there watching and, you know, out of the blue, somebody like gets slammed off a berm, you know, you're like, oh my God, like that changes the whole race. Like that's what's entertaining about it, right? Yeah. There's been like quite a few races where it's like, same thing. Like you're like, this guy's just going to go and lead it, right? And then you're like, we're just going to watch it like 7th and 6th, right? And like battle it out because they're having the best battle. And like you watch the camera just like turn to them and they're we don't care who's winning right now. Yeah. It's just like, it's off the leader for like almost the whole race because the battle for 6th and 7th, they're smashing the shit out of each other, right? You're like, get on. Yeah, it's way more entertaining. Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see. I really hope that Chase brings a better package and has something for Jet. I hope that Tomac is coming back. Honestly, Tomac can't come back at the same level that he left at. Jet is a level above that, and I'm sure he knows that, right? It's not like I'm coming up with something they don't know. Jeez, I'm the loser at the local track. I'm not the top guy, but I think if he comes back at the same level he left at, he's going to get destroyed by Jet. That's what I think. I think Jet has more talent and more skill than anyone else in the class. I just hope he doesn't walk away with it, so it's a super boring series. Yeah, you know, so. Which brings up another good point, though, is that Supercross, it maybe isn't quite like motocross, right? There's only a couple spots to pass or make moves. And, you know, you're talking to like 0.2 of a second between 1st and 10th, you know, on a lap time. So it's not like they're getting away from you that quickly. So, you know, if you've got someone who's in 2nd and is like
nah, Jet's not winning this one, and they just go low in a corner and take him out.
Yep.
Right now, granted, the next race, if he's not hurt, Jet can come back and do that to him. But my point is that it's not so easy like in motocross where there's a really wide track and you can take these huge lines around people. Yeah. It's way tighter, right? So I think you might start to see some guys get frustrated and start to lay the beats on Jet in corners because they're probably not going to be able to beat him straight up. Like, look at Barsha. If Jet comes to Pash Barsha, I guarantee you he is going to bam him off the corner.
Yep.
He's going to let him know, we're not playing this game, right? I can't beat you straight up, so I'm just going to ram you. So that's going to be an interesting portion to it as well. But then you've also got Hunter Lawrence. You're throwing Hunter into the mix now from the 250s. What are your thoughts on Hunter?
I don't think he's going to bring everything to the playing field right away.
What do you mean? Do you think like more from an experience point of view, or do you think he's not going to have the speed to keep up?
The speed. I don't think it's quite there yet.
Okay.
But I could be wrong.
I do agree with you. I don't think he's going to quite have what it takes to keep up with the really fast guys. I think especially when Sexton and Tomac start to push Jet, because obviously they're gonna give it everything they have. And so once that bar gets set, once that pace gets set with the absolute top dudes, I think Hunter's going to be off the pace a little bit. It's not to say he can't get there, but I just don't think he's going to have the speed to keep up with the really, really fast guys.
Yeah, I think he's probably going to take it as almost as a learning year, right? Take notes, kid. What are these guys doing that I'm not? And like, how can I get to that pace, right? I think he's still going to try to push as much as he can, but I think he knows he's also not quite there yet. So it's like, if I can get like all this stuff kind of tackled this year, next year come in, right?
Right. So, which brings up a good question in that, what's his contract look like? So if you're Hunter, like how many years do you have to get up to pace? You know what I mean? Like he's not a Jet where they're like, okay, this kid's the golden pony, right? We're going to funnel everything. He can have 3 years in a row that are complete shit, but they're still like, oh, he's the golden boy, right? He's got what it takes to keep us afloat, especially at Honda. They're going to want the championships to keep rolling, right?
Exactly.
If someone like KTM doesn't buy him out from under him, but so if you're Hunter, I don't have any insider information into their contracts, obviously, but I can't imagine that Honda is like, we're going to give you 3 years if he's getting 15th place. I feel like he's going to have to show something. He's going to have to show that he can do that. At least show them something, win a heat or something to say, I belong here. This is a good investment.
Yeah, then like be like, okay, Honda probably wants him to get up there, right? Because if that situation ever comes up where like Barsha tries to take out Jet, it's like, okay, you're a team player here, take the hit, right? Take out Barsha, right? Like,
so are you talking team orders? You think there might be some team orders?
Absolutely. There's always team orders. There's so many politics happening in there. So it's kind of I almost feel like they want him to progress to be like one of those top guys because again, right? Like Jet ever gets injured for some reason, right? Then they have a fallback. But I think he's going to be the kind of the second, right? Be like, go out there, like block, take the hits.
Right. So you think maybe he's like the hockey player that just goes and fights and he's not really good at hockey, but he'd like just go take a hit so that Barsha can't go ram Jet kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, when we talk about team tactics, honestly, like as long as I've been around this sport, which has been my whole life at this point, I've never actually heard 100% for sure, yes, there's still team, like maybe back in the 80s or 90s, right? But I've never heard recently, within at least the last decade, yes, there is team tactics. Because every interview you watch, with Lars Lindstrom of Honda or any of the managers, like, no, we just tell them to race, keep it clean, right? Because you're still trying to win a race, blah, 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 blah. I've never actually heard anyone flat out admit, there's team tactics. We want this guy to win because he's a golden pony, and this guy's not getting paid as much, so he needs to support him. So block that guy from passing. If it means you're getting 8th instead of 3rd, you're going to block passes instead of race your race, if that makes sense. Do you have some kind of information that I don't have, or is this like this is what you think?
No, like I've seen it happen, especially in like the off-road and endurocross industry, right? And I think it actually happened back when Ryan Villapolo was racing, right, with Ryan Dungey.
Like 2010-ish?
Yeah, 2010-ish. I forget like who's the other guy on Cowie. supporting Ryan. But I remember like the one race, all the guy did was like literally get in front of Dungey and like cut him off like dirty every time. And I forget what I want to say it was Vegas or something like that, but
I think that was the final round, was it not?
Yeah.
I remember that.
Right.
So Tomac was trying to win the championship ahead of Dungey.
Yeah.
And I remember Tomac was doing everything he possibly could to push him off the track and everything. And they're probably up for millions, right? So yeah, you're getting it. I'm sorry. I'm punting you if I get the chance. But interesting though. Like so in the off-road world, you've seen some of that before.
Yeah, I've seen it in off-road and endurocross, right? And I've seen guys like leave certain companies because of it.
Really?
Oh yeah, and it's like.
Do you think that's why Sexton left? Is because Jet's the pony boy? So Sexton, maybe he just feels like he has to take a bit of a second rung to them.
I feel, yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people probably have the same suspicion.
Then like I also feel like. I think like every rider gets to a certain point where they like get too content and they're like, okay, like I'm like plateauing. I need something else, right? I think like having that change, going to like a different company, a different bike, new team, definitely helps quite a bit.
Yeah, a little refresher.
Exactly,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
Because then it's like, okay, what have I been neglecting for certain skills that I can like work on now, and I can come back even stronger.
Yeah, and different people looking at you, watching you, saying, "Hi, you kind of suck here," or whatever, right?
And again, right, like you're going to one of the top teams. So it's like they have the money to support you, right? If you're like, I don't like this frame, give me a different frame, right? They'll be like, all right, let's see how we can make this happen, right?
Yeah. Do you think when talking about frames, so if you look at Jet, obviously he's riding the Honda, doing well on it. Is that a rider thing or is that a bike thing at that point? Like, do you think that you could, like, let's just say you're Chase. Do you think you could go to Honda and be like, yeah, your frame sucks for me. I need a different frame than Jet does. Or do you think it's like, you're just not as good, learn to ride the bike?
I think it's a little bit of both. And I think that comes down to like also knowing what type of rider you are and like how much knowledge you have. Because like there are some people out there that, and like even like pro riders that don't quite have that finesse. Right. And I've seen it's like, they go, the suspension guy doesn't even show them what they're doing. And they'll like, say, oh yeah, I made a couple clicks, go try it, right? And they'll go be like, oh man, I feel way better. And they're like,
didn't touch it. Yeah.
Right. And I've had like suspension guys for myself do the same thing. Right. They'll like adjust it and be like, okay, it feels like this. And they're like, I actually did soften it up. I'm like, oh, okay. So it's not like I'm not playing mental games either, right?
Yeah.
I think when you get to like a certain level where you're like one of the top dogs, you have that be like, hey, we can make this better. Let's adjust it, right? And then so obviously they'll keep like the main race bike and then they'll start like working on the other things, right? Be like, okay, like how can we get the extra flex out of this, right? I think like for 25 KTM, for instance, they're going to a smaller front fork, a little bit more narrow, just to help with the extra flex of the frame.
Oh, really? Eh?
Yeah. So
interesting.
It's like, again, like some of those companies, right? Like every 2 years, right? It's always a new bike. Yeah. They're always putting like new research and development into it, which is actually really cool. But again, like there are certain frames out there for those top guys that we can't get.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I've always, at least I know for like, someone that's at my level, which would be on the low end, I feel like, you could give me any bike and frame or no frame, whatever, I may be able to say, oh, these brakes are better or this suspension feels better or something like that. But I feel like, for 99% of the public, they're not even close to riding a bike at its potential. So don't tell me you need a frame or something. Like you're just not that good at riding it yet, right?
Yeah.
If you look at like a Sexton or something, it might be like, okay, well, those little tiny, tiny differences maybe change things for them.
Yep.
But I've always thought that for anyone around here, it's like, if it's a junior or something like that, or I need, it's a suspension or something. Yep. It might feel better, but you're not necessarily going to go a whole lot faster with it. You know what I mean? It might just tire you out a little less or something. But
especially in like, unless having that suspension, like how it's going to change on certain parts of the track to like allow your type of riding to progress, right? Maybe, but at the same time, it's like, I've always played with this mental side, right? It's like, hey, like, this is how it's set up. If I can't overcome it and like ride the way it is, then like, am I actually a good rider, right? Or do I have to like get to be like, no, my lever has to be exactly this distance, right? Again, especially if you're racing, something's going to happen, right? Like you're going to crash, and it's not going to be perfect. Your handlebars are going to be slightly tweaked. And it's like if you can't ride then, right?
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah. Your ability
Yeah.
to adapt.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Speaking of adapting,
Oh,
we've got Adam Cirillo
yeah.
and having to adapt with his arm issues. What are your thoughts on that? So he's obviously had it for a couple of years, right?
Mhm.
So,
Did that originally start with his shoulders? Was that like when it originally
I think
started?
it was a
or-
wrist injury
Okay.
that he had, and so he I think 10 minutes into the race, his one hand starts to go numb or something like that.
Mhm.
So he's got arm issues.
Yeah.
But it's him and Anderson over at Cowie, and I just don't. Anderson's going to be. I mean, he's going to be in the mix for sure. I could see him podiuming and stuff like that, but I don't think, and maybe he gets lucky and takes a win somewhere, but I don't think Anderson's going to be a consistent podium guy.
No.
I think Anderson's more of a 4th, 5th place guy type thing.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially like if he's having those arm issues, it's going to take a little bit to figure it out. Most likely, it's like nerve damage. I'm guessing.
Cirillo, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's been looking at it for a couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
at least from what I've seen. And I don't know that it's ever going to get 100% again based on what he says about it. But, you try and adapt, do the best you can. I really like AC. I'd love to see him do more podiums. Like he's just seems like a down-to-earth, solid dude. I like to see that, in the sport. I think that helps grow the sport. Yep. But again, I think he'll probably I shouldn't say luck out. He will lead some laps, but I think he'll fall back a little bit and be anywhere from 3rd to 8th. I think is probably an AC spot.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
Yeah,
I kind of wonder if he almost has to start changing up his riding style just to allow to take the stress off his arms and everything.
Yeah, maybe
Like that's why.
Can you do that though at a high level? Is that even possible when you're racing at the absolute top level of the world of Supercross? Can you change how you're doing it to keep pace?
Yeah,
I don't know.
That would be it'd be really cool to see. But
Yeah,
I think you'd have to take like a big step back and then take it like almost a year or so and then come back, right?
Yeah.
It's like we all have bad habits. Right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely.
It's like so hard to as soon as you get them, it's like hard to get out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Speaking of arm injuries, we've got Roxon, right? Everyone knows the story of him and obliterating his arms.
Yeah.
Seems to be doing well with that, though. They don't seem to really hold him back. And if they are, he doesn't talk about it much. And, just on that too, I don't like it that everything is so secretive. Like I'd rather like AC. I love it when he comes out and says, "Yeah, dude, my arm is, I can't hang onto the bike. That's why I'm fading." Right? Like I like people being honest about what's going on, and I feel like the industry is changing that way, or the sport's changing, as opposed to say 10 years ago or something like that, where it was like everything was under lock and key. Someone could have cancer and they're like, "Nope, still lining up racing and nothing's wrong." You know what I mean? It's like no matter what, it just never heard anything about anyone. So I do like that that's happening now. But Roxon, still riding Suzuki for this season. I mean, he showed Jet some speed. Granted, Jet literally waved him by, which is like, dude, you're basically peeing on him. You're basically peeing on him and saying, "I'm more of a man than you are." Like, dude, that's got to be a tough blow to the ego.
Yeah.
I don't know. Here's a question for you, dude. If you're in a race and someone waves you by and lets you take the lead, do you take it? Are you taking it?
Dude, I'd be like, no. Like if I what I would probably do is like make a quick pass and then I would slow down, let them go by. Pulled a Mitch there. Got aggressive.
Handsy talking here. Like
straight
sit on your hands.
jacket.
Yeah.
I'd probably just to keep the flow of things, do the pass, right? And then go wide, kind of purposely mess up and then let them go by because I'd be like, man, I'm behind you. I want to pass you legit.
Yeah. Right. So I think here's what I think because I'm half retarded. I think in the moment I would go flying by him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh, he's having bike problems, right?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's not the greatest way to win, but it's still a win. Win's a win, right?" But then if I knew or if I had time to think about it and thought to myself, "Oh, he's fine. Yeah. He just literally waved me by because I mean nothing to him as far as a competitor goes," that would piss me off. Like if I knew beforehand that's what he was doing, I wouldn't pass him. I'd be like, "No, not happening, dude. Yeah. It's yours. I'm not winning that way." That's dirty. I'm not taking that for win.
Exactly,
win,
right?
You know?
Especially if he's like this. Right?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then it's
yeah.
like, but yeah, like again, in the heat of the moment, right? Like things are happening. If they kind of like go a little wide, you're like, oh, the guy messed up, right? Then you like take advantage of it, and then you probably don't realize. And then if I found out afterwards, I'd be like, I'm coming back to take your soul in the next race. Right?
You're
like,
getting
that was
punted into the cheap seats, bud.
That was your mistake. You should have let that happen.
So with Roczen, I think he's still got it in him to get a win. I think. I don't know that he can do it consistently enough to get the championship. I think he's going to be, a third or fourth place in the points in the championship thing. I think he's probably going to have a couple really tough nights. Whereas I mean, unless there's a bike problem or something, or he just gets straight taken out, which is really possible. I just don't see Jet having the same issues that a guy like Roczen will have. Yeah. Because I just don't feel like he's trying as hard. I don't know. Maybe that's just my perception, but I don't see him trying as hard.
I think he's really comfortable with his level, right, and intensity, right? He's like, okay, I know if I'm at 80%, right? If I mess up or like someone passes me, I know I can go this much more before it gets really sketchy for me, and then I can go even more where I'm like good risk of crashing, right?
You're hanging it out, yeah.
Whereas I feel like, again, like I feel like Tomac kind of has this a little bit more dialed, but like with Roczen, you kind of notice that when he came back from the injury, he thought he was like, okay, I'm healed up, I can go exactly the same pace I was going before. And it's like, no, like you have to like take it down, like almost like 60%, work your way back up, and then be okay. Like, even though I have this injury, I feel really good, right? Like, 70%, and then be like, okay, now I can push here. Now I can push here, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like, again, in the heat of the moment, guys fall back to their regular routine where it's like, I should be able to go this fast, no issues, right? And then they start going that fast, and that's where those mistakes start happening again.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and we even see that at a local level.
Absolutely.
The first day the track's open, guys go out there and they're trying to ride what they left last year on, right?
Exactly.
And all the mistakes happen, and there's big crashes, and
guilty.
Dude, legit, the first round of any like spring series races where people haven't been riding throughout the winter and that kind of thing. There's gnarly crashes. It is chaotic the first round, dude. Like, so many people ride way over their head, right? I mean, to your point, that's something that we see even at a local level, right? So, but I mean, they're racing for a lot of money, these guys, right? There's a lot of ego involved, regardless of what they say. They didn't get to that position because they don't have an ego, right? You don't get to that high of a level in anything unless you are ultra competitive and you need to win.
Yeah.
Right. So, there's some ego into play for that for sure. And I see you squeezing your mic.
I feel like it's not like I feel like I'm turning like this and I'm like off key again.
No. So that's good. Right there.
Right there.
Yeah.
Just put it in front of my face.
Just don't move. Yeah. So, I mean, look, we're gonna leave out a lot of people in this, obviously the stacked 450 class, right? These are just some of the big names that we cover. But another one that does come to mind is Dylan Ferrandis. I am really shocked that he got punted from Star Yamaha.
Yeah.
Without knowing his contract or anything, I just didn't see it coming. Like, that guy is fast. And I feel like he had one, maybe two not so great years, and all of a sudden he's off and now he's racing for Phoenix Honda. Like, he didn't get picked up by anybody. So there's got to be something going on in the background that I don't know, because that just doesn't make sense to me. He's a 450 national champion, right? The guy knows how to ride a dirt bike.
Yep.
He had some crashes and some things happen, but I just feel like for him to not get offered from anyone, and yes, he's on Phoenix Honda, but that's not Star, that's not KTM, that's not their Honda team, that's not Cowie. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
just feel like it's nothing against them, but they're just not one of the huge teams that have all the money in the world. So, what do you think Dylan Ferrandis is battling with this year? What do you think is going to be his biggest challenge? Do you think it's a bike thing for him? Like, do you think he's not going to have the bike that he needs to be super competitive, or do you think he's going to be able to get it done?
I think that at the start it'll be a little bit to do with the bike, just getting familiar with everything. But I think he definitely has what it takes to win. It's just, and also coming off that mental state of being like, man, like, I didn't get picked up by anyone besides these guys, right? So it's like, you kind of feel, I don't want to say like worthless or anything, right? But you definitely don't feel like you're held at the same standards as everyone else.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah,
so
that's got to be.
So it could be like two ways, right? You got to show up to the line and be like, man, like, this sucks, right? Like, everyone else is on bare bikes, I should be there. Or you can come back and be like, I'm going to destroy everyone and be like, this is where I deserve to be. So it's kind of that little toss up. I think he'll come back with vengeance. He'll just take a little bit to get that bike to be like, oh yeah, when I hit this rut, this is how it's going to react.
Yeah, I think he's going to come back with a chip on his shoulder. I think he's going to come back. He's going to come out hot, and how that plays out for the whole season, I don't know, but I do think that the first couple rounds he's going to come out saying, "I got something to prove. You guys slept on me, and you shouldn't have."
Yep.
Right now, I've got this bike, and I'm still whooping your factory dudes.
Yeah.
I can see him being uber aggressive, probably just because he'd be pissed off, right?
Yep.
To be passed up like that. Surprising though, I did not see him being passed up for rides.
That was a curveball.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah. And you see the media posts where he's like, "Oh, I don't really know. I don't have anything lined up. I don't really know what's next." You're like, "Yeah, okay, whatever, dude. You're not in a position yet to actually say what your next deal is, right?"
Yep.
But that wasn't the case. He actually didn't have anything lined up, which is really surprising. Yeah. So that's a 450 class.
Yep.
I mean, we can touch on the 250 class a little bit. A lot of new names. Max Miller, a couple of the young kids coming up. We call them young kids. Well, I guess they are kind of kids to me. The younger dudes coming up, graduating from the amateurs, that sort of thing. You've got a couple guys like RJ Hampshire. Joe Shimoda is going to be a force to be reckoned with, right? And I'm talking the West Coast, by the way.
Yep.
But you've got some veterans in there for sure. Phil Nicoletti is going to be in there. You got some veterans. J Mart, I believe, is going to come back and race probably the East Coast. I don't think he was in the West Coast lineup.
I don't think he was.
It'll be interesting to see how he does by the time they hit to the East Coast. But you've got a couple of veterans in there. RJ Hampshire, hate him, love him. I feel like he gives you everything. When he's out on the track, he gives you absolutely 100%.
Yep.
Sometimes does some squirrely shit. Like, remember in that mud race where he just straight torpedoed into, who was the other rider in the corner? He just torpedoed the guy in the mud. It was so obvious what was about to happen. It was like, what were you doing? Now, granted, something may have happened earlier on the track that the cameras didn't catch, like it usually does. And then that was sort of a payback type thing. But from just a viewer standpoint, you're like, oh my God, he is straight missiling into this guy in the corner. Crazy, right? Yeah. So, RJ Hampshire he's going to be one of the top guys for sure in West Coast. And Joe Shimoda, coming off of a really good Kawasaki ride where he did really well. And so he's going to be coming out really strong as well. It's going to be interesting to see how Joe does on the Honda compared to the Kawasaki, compared to the pro circuit, right? That being said, Hunter and Jet both made the Honda look really well. So they obviously have a good package with it. Not to say that pro circuit didn't, but it'll be interesting to see nonetheless in the 250 class who's doing what.
So out of all the new riders, the young pups, who do you think is going to kind of come out strong and continue being strong throughout the entire season?
Man, that's a really good question because you have some of the newer guys that, and this is where I think the experience bit comes into play, right? I do think there's probably a difference between racing amateurs and racing professional Supercross. So, you may have raced a lot of Red Lindens and you're not, you've raced your whole life and that sort of thing like I talked about earlier. But, if you're lining up on the gate now at a professional Supercross, that I do think the experience comes into play a little bit. And so, I don't think there's as much of a gap going from the 250 to the 450 class. I think you're probably just learning. It's more about learning how the 450 guys ride as opposed to the 250 guys. But I just feel like the rookie thing is way more prevalent coming out of the amateurs into Supercross. Okay, that to me is more of a rookie. It's like now you're on a whole new level, right? Yep. That being said, I mean, a lot of those, the rookies or whatever you want to call them, they're riding with factory guys year round anyway at the same test tracks and all that kind of stuff. Even when they still have 5 years left on their amateur contract. They're on 80s and they're riding with factory guys, right? So, it's not that big of a leap for them, but I mean, it's tough to say because you've got Triumph, right? They just announced their team. You got some other brands that are coming into it, right? So it's going to be interesting to see. I think it'd be a really tough call to say out of the new guys who, just because I think you're going to see a lot of mistakes. I think you're going to see a lot of dudes crash out and a lot of guys, at least this season, really trying to figure out how this whole thing works. Like when to dial it up, when to dial it back, trying to play the long game, right? the first couple times they lead, they're super nervous and they make mistakes and they pump up and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see for sure. I think it's a tough call.
Okay.
Yeah. How about you?
I have to agree with you. I think it's going to be, I'm just going to have to see it. There's too many variables out there, right? Whether it's new riders, right? Again, coming up from the rookie, well, we call it the rookies, the actual pro, right?
Yeah.
And especially like the environment, right? Like not like I'm sure you're used to traveling, right, to go to all these races, but it's like that's also the next level. It's like, okay, like you have to be on the bike, you have to be training, and then you actually have to travel to the race, do all the press stuff, and like you're like, oh, press isn't that bad, right? But it's like that's still a toll, right? You're like you're getting told to sit there and you have to talk about stuff, and you're like, man, like either I just want to be on my bike or I just want to be resting and actually just focusing on the track and like dialing that in. Yeah. But you're like, I have to waste this extra energy now dealing with all this other stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I think that piles up, especially with the newer riders. Whereas again, the vets are kind of just like, yeah.
And there's way less mental stress with it because they've been down the road so damn many times, right? Like it's not a big deal. We'll sit here, we'll answer your questions, we'll smile, we'll kiss babies, shake hands, do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas, if you and I were to walk into that tomorrow, I'd be sweating. I'm like, oh God, okay, well, I got to do what now, right? It would take a huge toll on you. Yeah. So that's a good point.
Like, I just want to go back to my bathtub, sit in there and look at the turns. Like cool run-ins, right? Turn here. Oh, this is going to be triple.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, it's a good point. Like all the other stuff that comes with it, right? Definitely has to take a toll on them and they're going to have to get used to that, So let's call it.
Okay.
You give me... So here's what I want to do. So January 6th, okay, I'd actually like to do, we're going to do like what the hell is it called?
A bet.
Well, actually, I like that too. But no, so we're going to watch A1, right? And we're going to do, like, we'll watch it and post a video on YouTube.
Okay.
So it'll be like I don't know, I can't think of the word. I'm having a brain fart. Like a
preview of everything? Like,
no, not a preview, but you know what I mean? Like where we watch it as it's happening.
Yep.
With like a podcast and then we post it. You know what I mean? I keep thinking of like the JRE companion fight thing where they're watching a fight together kind of thing, but it's not a fight. Anyway, let's do that.
Okay.
We're going to watch the race. We'll do the reactions as it happens kind of thing.
Yep.
That being said, I want you to call it now. Who is your 450 guy for the championship? And if you lose, you have to do something really embarrassing. Okay. I don't know what it is yet, but I'll think of something.
Vice versa.
Oh, God. So what if we both lose?
Then we both have to do it.
What if we both pick the same person?
You can't.
No,
I just want to pick Jet.
Jet's your guy? Or is Tomac going to pull it?
I really want to see Tomac come back and just be like, you can come back from an injury and still do this. But I don't think it's going to happen this year.
No?
No.
You think he's going to walk out, retire like as a second or third in the points?
No, I think he'll he'll be like probably second. I think he'll start putting up a really good fight. And I feel like he might race again after that, like one more year, just to be like, okay, like this is how it's done.
Yeah.
I do think Jet is going to do pretty good. As long as he doesn't have a good crash and wreck himself. That's about it.
Yeah.
But he's been too consistent.
Yeah, I'm with you. Jet, I think, is going to walk away with it. I think Tomac might get a couple wins in there. I think Sexton might even get a win or two.
So who do you think is going to be second and third?
I think Sexton's going to get second and Tomac will get third. I don't know. That's a tough call, though.
Right?
That's a tough call. It's just so hard to say where Tomac's going to be at. Like, he's coming back, but he had a whole season off of running at Jet and Sexton's pace in motocross or anything, right? Like, it's going to be really interesting to see where he's at.
Yeah.
Obviously, they know the game, all that kind of thing. They know what they're coming into. I'd like to think that he's going to come in and ready to go, but it's a tough call.
I think it's going to be Tomac and Sexton.
You think so? Sexton for third?
Yeah.
So maybe the bet shouldn't be for who gets first. It should be for who gets second and third.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it for me. That's the 2024 Supercross preview, buddy. Any final thoughts on that?
No, what do I bring?
Oh,
for
we'll
food?
get snacks and the whole deal. Yeah, maybe some pizza or something. And then we'll put it on the screen and we'll have some cameras on our faces with the mics and it'll be really good.
Just sitting there on your couch, just
just eating. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know what we should do is we should be like people watching hockey. Be like, what an idiot! Like I would have never done that. That guy's such a rubber. You know, it's like because you could play hockey better, right?
Exactly.
We should do that. Like Tomac, what a sucker! Like he should have never taken that line. As we sit back and like literally can't go 10% that speed.
10%, and we're eating all this junk food.
we're just
putting on the traction.
We're just epitomes of fitness. Hey, yeah.
That way, when we hit that jump, we'll get full clearance. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I think it'll be fun, man. I think it'll be good to see how this season shakes out. It's exciting. It's a stacked field. Everyone that I know of is healthy and ready to go. It looks like, unless I'm forgetting someone.
I like that. Like mostly everyone's either on like new bikes, right, or like coming into that field, and then like or coming back from an injury. Like something that's always slightly different with each drive. So I think it's gonna be very like competitive. Throughout everyone.
Here's something we didn't talk about, but just came to mind. How many people you think are going to crash out at A1 and be taken out? I bet you a couple, at least a couple.
Oh, a couple.
Will crash out.
10. Let's just go with 10. That's good.
10, you think?
Yeah, 10.
I think that's a little high. I'm thinking like 2 or 3.
Oh, we're talking about like 450 and 250?
No, like
just
450.
Oh, I have a 3.
Okay, so maybe double that to 6 for 3 per class?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably fair. Mm-hmm. Time will tell, my friend.
Yep.
Okay, well, that's it. Thanks so much for everyone for listening in. Hit subscribe, all that stuff that we always ask you to do, and we appreciate it. And we'll see you and hear you in the next pod.
Yes.
Yeah? Cool. Ciao, everyone.
Yep.
Bye-bye. I feel like finger pistols are a good way to go. Like, that never gets old. It's that and the dice. Hey, the dice.
Oh, the dice.
That's so wicked.
Just don't do that too low.
No.
It would look awkward.
This is getting edited out.
Okay. probably good.
Oh, it's definitely staying. It's definitely staying in.
Staying.